it's a lot of it's a lot of good stuff going on right now, especially in the government. And one of the things I want to talk about today is we're going to talk about the FERS pension and what that means and how to calculate that and what that means as far as retirement goes. But today is a big week because with OPM, July 1st, they started the ORA, right? Online retirement. And so that starts July 1st. And so we want to talk about what that means because a lot of folks have been talking to us and we have a lot of people that were retiring this month and they're going through that process with the online retirement, the whole digital process. And I want to talk about what it means to you, especially if you're planning on retirement by the end of the year or so, and because you'll be engaging with it, and what the difference means, and what some of the good things are, what some of the pitfalls are, and then also helping you understand the timeline that and how that might alter the timeline and what it won't alter, right? And so I want to make sure we go through that. And again, we're getting away from all the slide based stuff. Soon we'll be bringing you all guests that we'll be talking to. Just so as you look, this might be maybe this is your first time, or your second time, or your 20th time, and you're like, well, where is the slide decks and all those type of things? We're getting away from that because we want to be more engaging. We will also want to be able to answer your questions in real time and pivot to things that you might want to talk about. We don't want to just be talking at you. We want to be talking with you. And that way, this is more conversational. And that way, people can grow together, right? If you come on here one day and you have a specific thing you want to ask, we want to make sure we open the floor to you to be able to do that. But, and so part of this is we go through that transition and making sure it's more engaging. So, today and we also want to make sure that we're able to address things in real time, like the digital retirement system that came online on July 1st, right? That's a big topic this week. We want to make sure we knock it out. And so when it comes to the digital retirement, and they're calling it ORA, right? And that's the online retirement application. What does it mean, right? Because there's a backlog, and the backlog, obviously, people are experiencing it. We have people that still have not received their full retirement check 5 months in. We still have clients who have not received their retirement check 5 months in. They retired in December, and they still have not received their check. Now, what I want to explain it to you is that varies per agency. So back in January, OPM's secretary released a article, and I'll try to give it to the team and see if we can get it to you later. But that in that article, it was called "Peeling the Onion." And in the article of "Peeling the Onion," it's on opm.gov. If you just Google "Peeling the Onion" on opm.gov, it breaks down the timeline of how retirement works. And so on average, and these are all on averages, I have clients who they retired at the end of September. They got their first paycheck in February. They got their estimate within 30 days. Everything is different based on your agency. So let me break down the timeline of how the online retirement application is going to benefit you, and then how it changed. Okay, so here's the timeline. On average, and these are all on average, this comes from opm.gov, the secretary, is 14. It takes the average federal employee 14 days to complete their retirement paperwork. That should shrink based on the online retirement application. They say that process should shrink because less paperwork is intuitive. AI can help with it, different things like that to make that process easier. Now, here's the part that isn't easier, that varies by agency. So on average, it's 14 days to do that. That was back in January. The online retirement application should shrink that. Then there's 60 days on average that retirement applications are processed by your agency's HR. That is where there's a huge discrepancy. I was talking to a client because before this call, I wanted to make sure I just got some different samples, and so I was just talking to a client. I was texting her before this. She worked at the VA, the one in DC. When she retired, her process. I'm sorry, no, she does not work at the VA. she worked at the Department of Transportation. Department of Transportation, their HR department did a great job. She's in DC, Southwest New Jersey Avenue headquarters. Their process was pretty easy. It was at the agency for 30, I mean, for about 20 days or so. Went over to the payroll department. The payroll department processed it in about 10. She had her intern check. Then she got her full check um, by February, right? So September she retired. She got her first intern check in December. She got her full paycheck in February. That's a pretty quick process. That's about as quick as it goes. So 14 days of process, 60 days on average for HR based on OPM. They have a 50, they listed on the site a 51-day period on the payroll because then it has to go through payroll too, and all that stuff has to get set up. And then it gets to OPM, and then the OPM is now saying with the ORA that it's going to take them 7 days, 7 to 10 days. They say 7 days is what it's going to average for them to then process your retirement once it gets to them, and then now you get your first paycheck. And so that also shrinks because before the OPM timeline was a lot longer, but they're saying once it gets to them, it should take them no more than 7 days. But it has to go through your HR, which is on average 60 days. And again, these are averages based on OPM. Every agency is different because the Department of VA, on the other hand, as opposed to the Department of Transportation, is over 60 days when it comes to their agency process and retirements. Because we have clients now who retired in December who have still not received their first paycheck. And we don't know where it's lost in the process. But unlike the Department of Transportation, they still haven't received their first paychecks, right? And again, you might be experiencing that or know somebody experienced it. It varies per agency, but let me just break down the timeline again. You got 14 days on average at OPM. I mean, the process, the paperwork at the beginning of the process that gets shrink by the ORA. Then it goes to OARs. I mean ORA. Yeah, sorry. Then it goes to the agency. The agency is where it gets lost, and OPM says they're working with different agencies to help shrink that process. Then it has to go to payroll. Payroll on average takes about 51 days according to OPM, and then it gets to OPM, and they're saying they're shrinking their process now to 7 days once they get your full package. Okay. Now, what does this mean for you when you retire? Because that's the big question. People come to us and they're afraid because they're like, okay, well, what do I do in this unknown abyss of is it 90 days? Is it 30 days? Is it 120 days? What do I do in that process? And it's a valid question. And so here's how it works. One, you're going to get an estimate of what your pay is going to be anyway. You're going to get an estimate, right? They're going to give you anyway. They say according to OPM again, all these numbers I'm quoting are according to OPM that you're going to get between 60 and 80% of your pay during that intern check on that intern part, right? So you're going to get that. Now, the issue with that, the gift and the curse of that is this: when you get in that 60 to 80% estimated check, they're not going to take state taxes out. They will take federal taxes out, but they're not taking your insurance out, and they're not taking your FEGLI out if you're getting FEGLI in most cases. And so those allotments that are coming out for things that you need don't come out. Now, when you do, and so that check is one number. But then now, when you do get your full retirement check, those things do come out. And then that first one, the first one's going to be a little funny because they're going to give you back pay from what they didn't give you from when you first retired. But they're also going to be taking out the FEHB that they didn't take out all that time if you're not paying it along the way. They're going to take out the FEHB. They're going to take out the FEGLI premiums. And then you still owe state taxes along the way. And so the thing that I would tell you, and the thing that I tell a lot of clients as they're leading up into retirement, is you want to make sure you're putting money aside so that that process isn't a stressful process for you. Because our goal always is to make sure you retire on time and with confidence. And so it's hard to have confidence when you don't have money set aside and you don't know when a new check is gonna when your first real paycheck is gonna come in. And so, I've seen people take out more money than they need to from their TSP that ultimately raises their tax bracket, maybe push them into IRMA territory in the future because now they took their taxes too high because they got their annual leave. Then they get, the full paycheck over time. Then they took too much out of their TSP. Just lack of planning. If you meet with us in our TSP finish line process sessions, we help you plan for that. If we see that there is a possibility that if you take too much, it might push you into another tax bracket, might affect you with it impacts you with IRMA and things like that, then we will either help you come up with another strategy to help you see that and alleviate that. Because again, when you retire, it's stressful. Right? It's your first time in what 30 years not having a paycheck coming every 2 weeks. And that's a real thing. And so you want to make sure that you have a plan in place so that when you do retire, you're not stressed. And that's the main thing that we talk a lot about at Fed Legacy is we want to make sure that the people that we meet with, we lower their stress levels. Because when you have high stress levels around retirement, you can make poor decisions. And here's the thing: once you get through that process where your full pension check begins to come in, I can tell you this now from doing this 17, 8, almost 18 years now, is that once you get that first paycheck, you can breathe easy because okay, now this is going to come to me monthly. You know exactly what's coming out. You know exactly how you've positioned your TSP. And I say this if you're working with someone that can help you navigate it. I should say it's peaceful in that case. But once you have everything outlined, I can tell you, like, it's interesting. I was talking to a lady this morning. She retired from the CIA, and she was just telling me how retirement is, and she was like, "I'm all involved with my nieces and nephews now. They're getting ready to have a baby, and it was all this stuff about them." And I was like, it gotta feel good to be able to to relax and worry about their drama. Because I always tell people, I'm like, when you're retired, the drama's gonna seek you out. I mean, because you need to, and I mean family good drama. It's like it's good to have it because it's like it's a new mission every day, right? And so my aunt-in-law, she lost her husband about 3 months ago. And she's still grieving and everything like that. But every time I see her, and now she's living alone and it's with the dog. It's just interesting. It's hard for her. And she retired from the US courts. And so she has her pension, he was VA. So she has everything set up financially, but she's just bored now. She's not living with any. It's just tough. And so I always tease her. I'm always like, "What's the new adventure? Did the dog run out the yard? Like, what's the VA doing with it with Uncle Ronnie's pension? Like, it's always something new." She's like, "Well, my tire flat." I'm like, "Oh, interesting. All right, that's a new adventure." Like, just always looking for the new adventure. So I say all that to say is that when you're in retirement, the last thing you want to be thinking about is money issues. And so you want to make sure you have those things lined up. And so this ORA and the OPM working with the agencies to make sure they shrink the wait time, it's a big deal because a lot of folks, especially if you're getting ready to retire, it can be a very stressful time. And so shrinking that timeline is super important, but making sure that you make the right decisions financially during that timeline is another very important thing. And so here's what you want to do. You want to make sure that if you're getting ready to retire in the next year, you want to make sure you put some money aside to fill that gap. I always tell people at least have 2 to 3 months worth of savings set aside because you're also gonna get your annual leave. So you're gonna get that check too if you have some, right? So you want to make sure you have at least 2 to 3 months aside because the annual leave could be 1 or 2 months itself. So now you're at 5 to 6 months of savings. That gives you the peace of mind. If you don't, and I get it, that's okay. You want to make sure that you at least take maybe some money out of your TSP if that's an option. And we could talk about how to do that and how to structure that and what that means. You want to make sure you do that because that's another piece that you have to remember. The TSP timeline is different than the OPM timeline as far as retirement and your first check. TSP TSP gets word through OPM that you are retired or through your agency that you are retired. They get that word earlier, and so I've seen clients who, like for example, the lady that department retired from the Department of Transportation. She didn't get her first full retirement check until February, but and she was younger than 59 and a half. But TSP got word that she was retired. They sent a notice that she was retired, considered retired before then. So she got that done in it was around mid-November. That was in TSP and she retired well no, sorry, mid-October, but she retired into September. And so by mid October, she was able to withdraw from her TSP without the 10% penalty because they had her down as retired. But she didn't get her full paycheck until the end of the to the beginning of February. So those timelines are different. So why that matters, I was talking to a guy, he's retired at the end of June, and I mean into July. Well, no, he retired into June. His paperwork is in process right now. He retired into June. He's waiting now. But he was like, well, I submitted my retirement paperwork. I didn't have a bunch saved though. Can I go into my TSP? I said, no, you can't do that just yet because if you do it now, you're gonna have that 10% penalty on it. And so we're waiting till he has that fully retired, that fully processed, so that he can then take money out of his TSP to help him bridge the gap of what possibly could be a 5-month process. So those are the things that are important when it comes to preparing for retirement and those days leading up to it is understanding that timeline. Again, the article from OPM is peeling the onion is written by their secretary. It's a good article. They give averages. Again, they only can give averages because the agency part is the black hole that unfortunately nobody can predict. Some HRs are great, some aren't. Like Department of Transportation is amazing. No disrespect to anybody that works at the VA, but the VA is not so much. And so it just goes case by agency, by where you are location wise, all that type of stuff factors into it. And so you just want to keep that in mind as you get ready to retire. So now what I want to do is I want to open up for Q&A in case anybody has questions around this particular topic or anything, in all honesty. Any questions? So one of the questions that I got asked today on this when I was talking to a client is like when you take out money, is it okay to take the money from the Roth TSP if you're over 60? And so yeah, because the Roth is already taxed. So you could take money from the Roth IRA, Roth TSP, especially if you've been in the Roth TSP over 5 years. It's uh it's a great place to take the money. And that's why you want to put money in the Roth because the Roth is already taxed. So if you're not sure about your tax situation, take money from the Roth TSP as long as it's been in there for over 5 years and you're over 59 and a half. That's a great place to take the money from. And if you're still working and you haven't started putting money in your Roth TSP, you want to do that, especially if you have more than five years or more to go, because tax-free money makes a huge difference. Now, the Roth TSP hasn't been around 20 years or anything like that. I think it's been around 9 or 8, something like that years. And so now you're starting to see people accumulate a lot of money into their Roth TSPs. And it was a person who sat on a call like this recently. Well, not recently. It was about 6 months ago. He said on one of the webinars. He booked a call with us after the webinar, and then we were going through his retirement, and we were going through it. He had about 300,000 in his Roth TSP because he from day one he started putting money in there, and he put a significant amount. And he was just talking about how when he retires, how he just wanted to, pay off a lot of his kids' student loans. Some of them went to grad schools and things like that. And his gift to them was he wanted to pay off student loans, right? And so he had a bunch of money in the traditional TSP as well, but the Roth TSP money, he's like, all right, I want to use this because my kids have been good. They've gotten great grades and got good grades in schools. They have families now. They have great jobs. I personally just want to do something to make life easier for them as they raise these young kids. And he took the Roth money and he did it. And there was no penalties on it. It was nothing. He just went in, took a couple $100,000 of cash out, paid off. And that you're going to see more and more and more of that because now people have time to be in the Roth TSP for a while, or if you're retired already, start to put money into Roth IRAs so that your money can grow tax free in big amounts. Makes a huge difference. But when it comes to this window with the ORA, you just want to make sure you have some money set aside as you go through that process and playing the waiting game. Chris, that's a good question, man. I don't know what's the earliest you can submit. It's just I don't know. I don't know what the earliest is. I know they say it takes about 14 days to complete. They did say that, but I don't even know if there is an earliest you can do it. It's a great question though. Um, yeah, I don't know the answer to that. During that waiting time, is it a good practice to pull out? Yeah. Yeah. Let me say this, Chris. If you're over 59 and a half, yes. If you're not over 59 and a half, you can do it. You might do a hardship and then they might that's a case by case. The better thing to do is let me make it clear. If you're over 59 and a half, you can do it. If you're under 59 and a half, it's case by case. It'd be great to have a conversation about it. We can walk you through it, but and make that decision. But definitely start saving money to get to a place where you don't have to involve your TSP in that process. Hope that makes sense for you, Chris. Is there a fee for helping with retirement? No, we don't charge a fee for helping. We take you through our FERS, our TSP finish line process. We don't charge for that. What we do is we take you through a four call process to help see where you are, and if we're able to help you, then we show you in which ways we can help you, and then we go from there. One thing that we definitely do now that we haven't done and we had not done in we had not done in the past is now we help with estate planning. So if you're on this call and you feel like you need some assistance with like your trust and wills, we can definitely support you with that. Just let us know in the chat. Just put a state in the chat, the state ESTAE, and just write that in the chat, and our team will reach out and help you organize an estate plan because that's a super important thing that a lot of folks just don't do. Right, planning for retirement is you just putting money aside, putting and building up, building up, building up. When you retire, though, now you have this pile, right? That's yours, and that's great. You use the pile because the pile supports you for the rest of your life. When you pass, having a trust and an estate is like putting a fence all the way around it because otherwise, taxes, courts, creditor, whoever, right? Family members that you don't all the way believe in just start taking away from what you built all this time. And so the reason why we have Fed Trust and Wills is because we want to make sure you put the proper fence around what you have so that you dictate things even in your past. Once you pass, it's like you still control what you've built all these years. Super important. Our team with our team will put a link in the chat. We can set up a call. And what we'll do is we'll take you through our discovery call, kind of see where you are. We hit on issues like taxes, income planning, um, TSP planning, long term care, and then legacy, like the estate stuff. We focus on those five things because we've noticed over the 18 years now that we've been doing this, those five categories will make or break your retirement. Taxes become has become a big deal over the last since 2021 when Trump changed the state tax rules where you used to could your family, I should say, used to could take your TSP money and defer the taxes until they get to their retirement age. Now they have to pay the taxes on that in the first 10 years, which creates a huge tax bill for folks. And so now we focus a lot on making sure you're doing proper tax planning for you and your family, making sure you understand how to navigate long-term care. A lot of federal employees, most federal employees, don't even need long-term. And I'm saying this, I say most. It's not everybody, of course. I'm just speaking about in general, so don't take this and run with it. But in most cases, most federal employees, there are things you could do with your TSP as far as how you uh, allocate it and things like that, where you can use that long term, you can use your TSP to pay for your long term care. And the reason why that is because, like, unlike most folks, you have a pension, you have Social Security. So your TSP is not your main income source. And so if you're watching the news, you're talking to your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, friends, whatever, that are not federal employees, long-term care is a super priority for them because their income is their 401k. And as they draw down their 401k, they have a medical emergency, they have a choice to make. Do I take 200,000 out of this that's paying my income to take care of my long-term care, then I have no more income, or do I not and then end up in a whole lot of debt? And it just becomes a stressful thing. As federal employees, most of you all, especially if you structure it right, your first pension, your Social Security should take care of a lot of your income. I mean, your expenses, and so your TSP is sitting there as an asset that's continuing to grow, and you could use it for uh, for long term care and things like that. And that way, you don't have to pay for long term care. So we help you understand that, and then we also help you understand estate plan, like I just mentioned, and then we also the income, when and how to take Social Security, all that stuff. There was a question that just came up. How do you get a real time number for your future pension? Okay, Patricia, that's a good question. Let me write this formula down. The way to process your pension is this: you take you take your current salary. There's a formula to do the pension estimate. The future part is interesting because it's all about what your future income is. But the first pension is easy to calculate. Here's how you do it: you take your high three salary, but for the purpose of this example, just take your current salary, take that amount, put it all the way out. Let's say it's 100,000. Take the 100,000, put that in the calculator. Then, if you plan to retire after 62, put times 62, or not at times 62. You put times 1.1 because your pension formula is 1.1%. If you retire before 62, is 1%. So for this example, let's say you're over 62, Patricia. 100,000 times 1.1% times the amount of years that you will have at your ideal retirement date, Patricia. If you do that, you're going to get a number. That number is your annual pension amount. You then divide that number divided by 12, and now you have your monthly number. So if you want to know the future, you just got to guess on like Patricia, how far are you from retirement? If you don't mind me asking, because it's I can tell you. But if let's just say you're 10 years out, maybe add 30,000 to your current salary or like to just there's no real way to predict your hot three. But the way to do it if you're closer to retirement is take your salary, times it times 1.1% if you're over 62. If you're under 62, it's times 1%. Times it. Okay, so you're 2 to 5 years. So if you're 2 to 5 years, I'll add about 20,000 on top of your current salary. Just to give you a ballpark. So add about 20,000 to your current salary. So if your salary is 100, put one put 1 point put if your salary is 100,000, put 120,000 times 1.1, okay, percent times the amount of years you're going to have in the government. once that time comes, and then divide that by 12. And then that's what your monthly pension will be. Hope that helps. Did that help, Patricia? And then, is there any other questions before we're right at time? Is there a tradition? Is there a minimum or maximum to transfer funds from traditional TSP to Roth now? You talk about within the TSP, Dr. Patricia? Is that what you're talking about? Or you talk about in general? Because companies vary when it comes to outside of the government. Okay, within TSP, I don't know if there's a minimum within TSP. I'm sure there's a minimum. I'm sure there's something. But the thing about with TSP, when it comes to transferring money from traditional TSP to Roth TSP while you're still working, you gotta understand what the tax penalty will be. Not penalty. You gotta understand what the tax bracket it will put you in. It's often better to do the transfer from traditional to Roth TSP as far as lump sums of money after you retire, because now you're in a lower tax bracket instead of doing it while you retire. Because what happens is, let's say you're making 150,000 and then you transfer 50,000 to traditional TSP to Roth TSP. Now your taxable income for the year for you personally is at 200,000, and then with your spouse and all that. So now you're taxed at a higher rate. But you could do that same 50,000 when you retire, and it be taxed at to the 24%, might be taxed at 12%, because now you're doing it with just your first pension, which will save you a lot of money on the same 50,000. I hope that makes sense. Thank you. $500. Wow, they let you do $500. Most investment banks won't let you do that low. Well, that's great. The TSPs allow you to do 500. But yeah. So I hope that makes sense, Dr. Patricia. So when you're working, I mean, you could do it, but you'll pay a lot less in taxes if you do it when you retire. While you're working, the thing to do is to start putting money into the uh your Roth TSP as a contribution, build that up, and then when you retire to start doing some of the transfers. You'll just save a lot of money. All right. I think that's all we got for today. Hopefully that was helpful to everybody. We'll send a follow-up email out for those that want to book a call. We put it there. Also, those that wrote estate in the comments, we'll make sure we reach out to you, and our estate planning team will walk you through that process. And yep, we have everything in house. We have the attorneys. We have everything in house to make it easier for you. And the reason why we did it is because we deal so much with a bunch of federal employees and all the TSPs and things like that. And so we know what it takes to put put your TSP. I mean, make the beneficiary the trust, and we just understand that process really well. And we were referring that stuff out to attorneys, but they would just it's just it, honestly just an old antiquated industry, and they just were not doing the quality of service that we needed. So it took a while to do it, but we made sure we did it right, and now we have it, and so we're able to support. So, all right, y'all. Hope everybody's good. We'll talk to y'all later.